Hi guys, Luca here from Airsoft, back in the workshop now with another video on lubricants. This particular video even, is sponsored by Perfect Airsoft. Thank you very much for sending out the lubricants for me to test, and for the insane amount of information that you gave me with it, and the follow-up conversations and discussions that we've had. I know I'm not the easiest person to talk to sometimes, but I do try. Anyway. The reason we're talking about lubricants today is because since they sent this to me quite a while ago, actually, sorry for not getting the video out sooner, I've been using these quite a lot because, again, it's the only way to really give something a fair test, it's to use it. As you can see, this is my Super Lube tube that I've had for God knows how long. This is basically empty now. And for the longest time, this was my go-to. But what I found recently, actually, is I've preferred this kind of pot. It's easy to work with, and, well, it's just easier to work with. But what surprised me is which of these two particular greases that I preferred. I expected I would prefer the silicone-free grease with PTFE, because, as we all know, Explosive Enterprises had that excellent video where they stated to use silicone-free or synthetic lubricants instead of silicone lubricants, because a lot of seals are made from silicone, or they're starting to move towards that, and also hot rubbers are made with silicone. What I found is that actually that's true for the most part, but not always. And in fact, in a lot of applications, I found that the silicone one is actually better. Certainly it's easy to work with and seems to go further. It's a lot thinner. That's not to say that their advice is still bad. I'm not necessarily disagreeing with them. I'm just saying that it's true, but not in every case. For example, in an AEG, for example, I found that on the gears especially, this silicone stuff is actually really, really good. One of the important things that I learned from Perfect Airsoft was that PTFE is not a base, obviously. PTFE is a additive. So if you've got, for example, these two here, where you've got silicone-free, so synthetic, and you've got silicone grease, both of them have PTFE in, so they can't both be PTFE greases. They are just greases with PTFE. You can, of course, have other additives that give things colour, for example, though that can also then lead to additional abrasion, or certainly a reduction in the effectiveness of the particular grease. Again, this is all stuff that I've verified because I am very much a trust but verified person. If someone tells me a thing, I will go off and research it in order to make sure that what they're telling me is actually correct. And nothing that they've Perfect Airsoft have told me is wrong. They are perfectly correct. Silicone is perfectly fine, as is synthetic, except for a few things. Silicone will get absorbed by silicone. So if you've got something like a pink flamingo and you get a bit of silicone grease on it, the silicone aspect will get absorbed into the hot rubber. Or if you've got one of the new maple leaf silicone rubbers as well. Same applies for the O-rings. If, however, you use a synthetic with those O-rings and hot rubbers, that won't happen. And in fact, it'll probably work very, very well. However, if you've got something such as, I don't know, NBR, which is what Quantums use, and you get synthetic on it, or if, for example, you've got a similar type of material in your O-rings, what happens is you end up with crusty O-rings that dry out and then crack. I recall seeing not too long ago, it might have been a few months now, someone who had used synthetic grease in order to stop a leak on one of their mags, and what ended up happening is it got worse after a while. It started off fine, and then when they opened it up, they discovered that all of the grease had dried out and it had gone crazy and cracked all of the O-rings. So the point is that you need to know what material you have when you're applying the grease. If you want to be safe and go, and accept that, it might get absorbed if it's a silicone product, then use a silicone grease. If, however, you know for certain that it's silicone and therefore, you need to make sure it doesn't get absorbed, go for synthetic. But what about oils? I still don't like oils. I don't like oils because oils go everywhere. Wherever you put it, it's not where it's going to stay. Gravity is going to make it move. Oil is oil and oil moves. However, that's not to say that oil doesn't have its uses. There are times where I will use oil. For example, if I want to give a metal body a coating of oil in order to prevent rust, well, obviously I'll use oil. I'm not going to put grease on that. That's going to, well, just be absolutely horrible. But if you rub a small amount of oil into it, then it can help prevent help prevent rust. Not completely stop it, but, you know, regularly doing it can help. And it also gives it a really nice sheen as well. Now, do I think that this particular grease is better than everyone else's? No. Because what this grease and what Perfect Airsoft has basically taught me is that there is no particular grease which is better than anything else. Super Lube, very, very good, hard to get in the UK. And in fact, sometimes you might not even be able to get the exact same stuff in the UK, or it won't look as obvious. So these two, they are identical, except this one has PTFE in brackets and this one doesn't. But the part numbers are exactly the same. Are they the same product? Who knows? This stuff, you can get this anywhere. It's just a giant tub of silicone grease. Is that any different from this? Yes, this has PTFE added into it. This doesn't. Is this better? For metal on metal contact and the high pressure? Yes, this is better. For everything else, you can just use this if you really want to. Doesn't matter. Oils, again, I think I've already said my bit on oils. So, it doesn't matter what grease, like, no one grease is better than another. Just get what you can, as long as it's appropriate for the materials in your replica. And if you don't know what those materials are, ask someone. Ask me, ask someone else. And then get what you can get. Genuinely, just get what you can get. These are, as far as price to weight ratio go, they're okay. They're about average. I think this is purely off the top of my head, so I will put on the screen if I'm wrong. I want to say they're about £8.99 or £8.50 per pot for each type. And you can buy them as a bundle. It might have been 24, 25. I can't quite remember. If you're in the EU, you can buy these directly from Perfect Airsoft. He might have a few more distributors as well. If you're in the UK, you can get these from SOCOM Tactical. What else? What else do I need to say about these? This is something that I do like about these. So, if this is all made in Mexico, which I believe it is, and then obviously sold in the US and then shipped over here, this, God knows where that was made. That's all well and good. This one is entirely made in Germany. This is entirely German. The pot, the grease, the whole works, made in Germany. Can verify that. So if you like to buy things that are made in the EU, these are your go-to. If you don't care, then, I don't know, go watch someone else. Like, go buy a different grease. I'm not your supervisor. These are, as I say, are available at SOCOM Tactical. They are also available from Perfect Airsoft. And proof's in the pudding, I have been using this quite a fair bit. It has started to separate a little bit, but I can fix that just by mixing it back together. No problem. I'm more than likely going to buy more of these. I'm not going to lie. I quite like them. I've used them in most of everything. If not silicone, then this one as well. But as you can see, I haven't really used the synthetic very much, because I confirmed with tests that it does indeed crack and dry out NBR material. And there's grease all over my fingers. It's not the end of the world. It's also quite a bit thicker. Oh, I know I haven't spoken about PTFE. Why PTFE? So, grease has what you can almost describe as a barrier. So, grease is a barrier. And what happens when that barrier, the forces applied to that barrier is exceeded, is you get, I think it's called the shearing point. Basically, the grease separates and you end up at that dry spot. What the PTFE does is that kicks in when that shearing happens. That means that then there's these PTFE particles that still exist where the grease is sheared, and it's incredibly low friction. So that's the whole point of PTFE, is it's a backup. It's not there for the whole thing. The grease does the work. The PTFE is there as a backup. That's why we like PTFE, because most airsofters suck and will in fact forget to grease their gun, and so at least at the very minimum you'll have a layer of PTFE there. That's it for this video. Once again, I'd like to thank Perfect Airsoft for sponsoring me with this. I was very, very happy to receive this, including the sweet treat that you put in there with it. That was really, really nice. And today, you are the only person who has actually told me absolutely everything that is involved with your greases, which to me puts you at the top tier. because no other person has done it. That's it for this video, guys. Catch you on the next one.